Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. In about 25 seconds, we're going to start. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see how this party starts today. All right, in 10 seconds. I could do it. 10 seconds. Woo. All right, let me turn off this, turn off this. In 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome, humans, and welcome to the planet Earth. And today, you are going to participate in the browser wars. The browser wars? What the heck does that mean? Well, that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about browsers, web browsers, Internet Explorer, Chrome, Google Chrome, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, Opera, and a couple others that may or may not even appear in the list, but they'll get honorable mention. So how's everybody doing tonight? My name's Larry Miller. I'm with Geek, and if you need IT solutions, ideas, suggestions, anything related to putting up a wireless access point, to fixing your computer, to doing a website, or even social media, I can help you. Go to my website, connectedgeek.net, schedule an appointment, and I'll help you out. So let's get into it today. We're going to go over some tech tips. The first one is related to Internet Explorer. So let's get some introductions out of the way. And my name is Larry Miller. You can find me at what you see on the screen, which is Connected Geek at connectedgeek.net. Thank you for joining me today. So this week we have talked about buying a new computer and all the craziness that it goes to buy a computer, because you have to figure out what's the best one for me. I don't know if you noticed, there's a theme throughout this whole week. The theme is preference. So the preference I have is, what kind of computer do I have? What kind of do I want to buy? What kind of computer do I want to get? Do I want to get a Mac or a PC or a Linux-based computer, which is still a PC? If you watched the show before, you'll know that. So go back and watch it. So Mac versus PC versus Linux. Yesterday, we talked about antivirus. Antivirus is the same thing. They're all about the same. They all do about the same thing. It's just what kind of experience do you want to go through? Today is the exact same thing. The web browser that you put in front of your face on that screen every single day is and will be your experience on the internet. So what does that mean? What does it mean to it? I just double click on the E, or I double click on the little colorful circle, and I get what I want. Internet wise. Well, there's a lot of different nuances about the internet that a lot of people don't realize. There's areas of each browser that gives you an experience that's maybe a little bit different than the other one. Sometimes it takes a little more effort to figure out where things are versus others. When it comes to, is it the tabs up at the top? Where do I find my settings? Where do I find all the information related to how I'm getting onto the internet? Where are my bookmarks? Where are my favorites? Two different naming conventions based upon which browser you're going into. We're going to go over those just a little bit. Today we're just going to talk about what does a browser do and which one is the best for you. If you want to get deeper into that, or if you want to know how a browser can help you more, just reach out to me and I'll help you out. So today we're talking about the browser wars. Dun, dun, dun. So first, in this little graph right here, I'm of the opinion this graph is pretty accurate from my opinion. See, and there I go again, saying it's my opinion. My opinion says that Google Chrome is the best web browser of all. It has the most flexibility, the most capabilities, the more extensions or plugins, as they would call it in Firefox, or add-ons, depending on how old your browser was or is. Firefox is a great browser. That's the when I left Internet Explorer, that's the first browser I went to, and it did me great. I was able to get all the plugins I wanted, to get all of my bookmarks to come along. Foxmarks, I think it was called. Opera is a very, very good small footprint. That means it's a really small application that will use your browsing experience, let your browsing experience be much more. The best way to say is is a small footprint, and it doesn't take up a lot of resources. It doesn't use a lot of it just doesn't use a lot of resources. It's just the best one when it comes to your computer not overwhelming itself. There's what I was going with. Microsoft Edge. Well, Microsoft Edge is a good browser. It's native to the Microsoft Windows, but it doesn't need any other crazy plugins to do its thing. It's just native to Windows. And when you use Windows Edge, it leverages the Windows operating system. So it tends to be a little more fast when it comes to the usage within your computer. It's just an upgrade to Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer is still on your computer, and it's not going anywhere. It's just in a different place. Google Edge kind of makes it fancy. You notice I didn't get into Safari here because Safari is just a Mac browser, and it really doesn't even show on the list because I don't think it's a great browser at all personally. But people still like it, still people use it. But I typically always install Chrome on a Mac, no matter what I do, so I don't even consider it. There's Vivaldi, I think it's called. It's one of those up and coming ones that's gaining a little traction, but right now it's not even on. Other than the honorable mention, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, that's about all you're going to get out of it. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so which one do I choose? Which one is important to me? Which one do I think is going to do the best thing for me? Well, you have to consider what your browsing experience is going to be. Is it a Mac? Is it a Windows PC? Is it a smartphone? Which one works best for the browsing experience I have? We spend more time on our mobile devices than our computers in the history of computers. So when you start using your browser, which one do you want to use better most? Well, guess what? Safari comes back up because that's the native one, and it always tends to work by default because that's the way Apple wants your browsing experience to be. Now, if you have an Android, it's always going to be Google Chrome, or you can do Opera, which Opera is a great it's a great device, browser on your device. Now, like it says in here, Microsoft Edge and Internet Explorer you can't be used on a Mac. You can get a plugin inside of Google Chrome that'll emulate Internet Explorer, but it's it's all messed up. It doesn't really work right. So I just stay away from that. Just use Firefox. You can use Firefox, you can use Chrome, and you can use Safari on a Mac. Those all work just fine. I personally like Chrome, but that's just me. Windows, obviously, you can't use Safari as well. Apple has kind of, I think, hacked it up so it doesn't really work as well as it should, because they don't want you to be using Windows machines anyway. They'll never say it. They'll never go out of their way to make sure that it doesn't work. It will work, but they don't update it as often. They don't make sure it's patched as much as the other ones are. So I just stick with Chrome or Internet Explorer, whichever is preference. Now, we'll get into it more deeply later in the show, but Internet Explorer on a Windows computer or Edge works great in corporate environments because there are certain applications big corporations still use the integration of Windows and Internet Explorer to access what they call an intranet. An intranet is a application that's built on a website that's internal to their corporation, where information is just shown to that company through this intranet. And sometimes it leverages the Internet Explorer interconnectivity of Windows and how it all integrates to itself. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with the details, but basically it's It works really well in the corporate environments. Moving on. So we need to still choose which one we want to use. It's still a preference, and I've said that before, and I'll say it all through this, and I've said it all earlier this week, because your computing experience is always going to be a personal preference, and how you handle your internet traffic and how you handle the information that you deal with is so personal. I couldn't tell you how to do it, even if I tried. You just need to do it the best you can. As I was mentioning before, Internet Explorer, they say they've discontinued in Windows. It's still there. It's still usable, still workable. It still gets patched the same way as Edge, because all Edge is just a pretty covering over a once usable and still usable Internet Explorer. The nice thing about Edge, it gives you a lot more flexibility with this thing called Cortana, which is the personal assistant inside of like Siri or Alexa, all those particular devices. Windows has Cortana. Cortana is a personal assistant virtualized. So going back to Safari. Safari only works on Macs and iOS devices, and it integrates with your Siri or your Spotlight search. So if you have a Mac, you know that when you are say, hey Siri, the computer should come up and say, like my phone just did. It's listening to me. Anyway, it's thanks Siri. It's doing the same thing that your phone does, because what Macs are doing is they're trying to blur the lines between the two devices, so your user experience is always going to be the same between both devices. All right, so moving on. So we're getting to my favorite, Google Chrome. Google Chrome is used across a multitude of different devices. They make sure that Chrome is used everywhere and anywhere, everywhere from Linux, as we talked about a couple days ago, to Windows, to your smart device, everything. And nowadays you can actually choose, when you click on a link in your phone or something, to open up Chrome or Safari respectively, because more people are saying, well, I like Chrome better, just the experience to me, because all my shortcuts are there, all my things that I use every day are right there. Now, Firefox has a very similar usage as Chrome. It has a lot of plugins, add-ons that you can do that Chrome has. It's almost similar because they always build them for both the same, because they're so popular. The one thing that Firefox has over Chrome, in my opinion, and the opinion of the professionals like me, when it comes to IT administration and web surfing and protecting the environment that we manage and administer, it's important to use Firefox, because it's much more secure. It handles passwords better. It handles your internet traffic better. Things are much more secure with Firefox, in my opinion. But as I said, it's all about preference. The last one is Opera, and Opera has a pretty good following. I know a few people that use it just as much as people use Chrome, but not to the extent of Chrome and not to the extent of Firefox. Opera has a really nice feature set. We're going to go into that a little bit later, but it's nothing but a good browsing experience. I know for personal experience, I've tried it for a while. It worked really well. I didn't care for the interface. I didn't care where things clicked. I like where Chrome feels. The nice thing about Opera, a lot of the extensions or plugins work in Opera, so it's what they call extendable. So you can extend your reach into the other two browsers. All right. Next thing is, well, I still can't decide. Why can't you decide? Well, because it's a preference, and I don't know what to choose. But if you need help deciding, there's all kinds of articles out in the world that'll help you pick it. Those silly little games you can play to tell you what kind of Star Wars character you are, or what Harry Potter character you are, or that kind of thing. There's browser tests that do the same thing. It brings you to where you think you should be as a browsing experience. I'm not going to go into those because we don't have time tonight. Anyway, so it's all about what you want to do on the internet. Choice. Choice, choice, choice. You got to choose the one that fits your personality. And the beautiful thing about each one of these browsers, mostly Chrome and Firefox and some Opera, it allows you to customize your experience. You can change the background, you can change the colors, you can make it feel like you belong there, kind of thing. It's where, since you're staring at it all day long, if you're working on a computer all day long, it helps you figure out what you want to do with your life when it comes on the internet, because there's so much to do out there. Why not make it a pleasant experience? I can talk tonight, really. it just helps the overall experience. What I, like I was saying before about Firefox and Chrome, you got to keep yourself safe. When you go out to the internet, there's, as I was mentioning yesterday with the antivirus, if you don't have proper internet security on your computer, then your browsing experience is going to be degraded and diminished because it's not giving you the experience that you need to be doing on the internet. So when you choose a browser, find one that fits your clickability, when finds the way that the tabs are, you can organize the way you like, where your shortcuts are, or your shortcuts, favorites, bookmarks, whatever they're called. Those things help you get to the internet faster. Like I said earlier, the feature set is important, so you can find the right pieces to the pie that make your browsing experience much more rewarding. So, and as I mentioned earlier about Internet Explorer, if your website, does it work with everywhere you go? It's because there's some Chrome websites, or Chrome, there's some websites that won't work in Chrome, and there's some websites that won't work in Internet Explorer. Chrome is very, the word I'm going to use again is extendable. It has a lot more flexibility. It's all based upon how a lot of the web pages are built. Web pages are built in a specific language. It's called HTML. That's the primary language that websites are delivered to. It's hypertext markup language. Hypertext markup language. That's what the HTML stands for. HTML is the foundation of a lot of websites that we do every single day. And the most recent iteration of that is HTML5. Well, more websites are being built on HTML5. Well, Chrome handles that particular language quite well. Internet Explorer doesn't. Firefox does. Opera does. But Chrome has kind of led the way and making sure that all websites are going that way. Anyway, moving on. So let's kind of dive a little deeper into each browser and what are the benefits that you would see if you chose that particular browser. Speed is always the most important thing. I mentioned earlier the Internet Explorer Edge is really fast because it integrates really well with the Windows operating system. Well, Google Chrome has a really small footprint as well. Not as small as maybe Opera, but it just knows how to cache the information that you're going to the internet. Now, when I say cache, what that means is when you go to a website and you read a couple articles, and you go back to that article later in the day or maybe even tomorrow, most of that information is already pre-stored on your computer. So when you go back and look at it, it's just going to bring that local file, that local HTML file per se, and it will just bring that piece up and then refresh only thing that's the stuff that's new. So let's say there was a new image or a new piece of text, that comes up right away. Google Chrome is able to handle that type of interaction with websites much more efficiently. Going to go back to simplicity. Now, simplicity it's a clean browser. It just does what it needs to do. You click where you need to click. You can have 50 tabs up at the top, and it still runs pretty fast if you have a pretty good computer. Now, that going back to what kind of computer you have, earlier in the week we talked about what kind of computer you should get. So go back to episode, today's 10, it would be 7. So go back to episode 7, and that will tell you how to get a new computer. Security and privacy. It's important to know that your privacy and your internet browsing are safe. So Chrome updates their browser all the time with security updates. They keep on top of the interaction with your antivirus on your computer. They know how to screen that kind of stuff to see if there's any malicious activity when you're browsing. That's why they succeeded so quickly, is they were able to handle that faster than Internet Explorer and Firefox and Opera. Customization. As I mentioned earlier, you could do all kinds of fun things with your browser. You can take colors and you can put backgrounds on it. If you like Star Wars, you can put like the Death Star in the background when you're browsing. When you click up a new tab, it'll bring that up. Or if you like art or flowers or whatever, you can put that stuff in the back and around the edges, so it's pleasing to your eye when you're watching or a video, or you're surfing the internet, or you're seeing some kind of article, and you want to be outside instead of looking at your computer. Well, you can kind of emulate that idea through your browser, which is kind of neat. One of the best things that Google Chrome ever did, in my opinion, is that it took it so you could log into your browser. You can have all your bookmarks follow you. You can have all of your favorites follow you. Everything follows you, your passwords even. So if you log into this browser on this computer and then log into one next to it, into the browser, all of your passwords follow you. Now, I don't care for that as a security person, because what happens is that means if I don't lock my computer, or if I don't secure my computer, or if I don't log out of the browser when I'm done, guess what? All those passwords are available to the person that might come up behind me and send something on my behalf, or install something on the computer that's, stealing my information. So just be careful when you do that kind of logging in. So just be careful. Next one is Firefox. Now, Firefox is much more efficient than Chrome, in my opinion. It has I already said that Chrome is fast and caches better. Firefox has been around a lot longer than Chrome, and they've known how to surf the internet for a long time, and they know all the nuances and all the breaks and fixes and all the things that maybe Chrome still isn't fully aware of, even though they have Google behind the name of it. The people at Firefox really have done a great job at trying to make sure that the data that they are presenting to you through your browser is safe and secure. And it says it's just a browser. Well, what that means is that you don't need to have all the bells and whistles. It already comes pre-installed. All the stuff that you need to have is already there. You don't need to put a Chrome, you don't have to add-on or extension or this plugin or this application to make it run more efficiently. It just works. And that's what's great about Firefox. Now, when it says embraces open source mindset, in the world of programming, when people program applications, program websites, program things that make the internet be better, well, there is a group of people that consider open source. What that means is that Firefox gives programmers and other engineers access to the source code. And what that means, the source code, they're allowed to manipulate the base code of Firefox to be more secure, to be much more extendable, so you can add more things to it, so it can do things like I mentioned with Internet Explorer, where it can interact with your applications inside your company that type of thing. It's just a very open way of handling their data and then their information. So people that need to access the internet in a secure way or in a fun way, the open source mentality does that. They're mentioning it, I'm mentioning it in this list. I'm just reiterating it again. Basically, they're really up on privacy. They love that kind of stuff. I haven't played with Firefox as much as I've done with Chrome, but when I did, it did have a lot of good customizations. Just like I said, you can make it look pretty or fancy or streamlined as much as you want with customizations. It has, I think, probably more extensions or plugins or add-ons than Chrome will ever probably have, because they've been around so long. They keep adding more and more, and they keep being the forefront of that kind of mentality. So if you ever want some sort of browser experience try Firefox out and see if it works for you. They say they could do just as much as Chrome, mostly. Some things they just can't do, because like the logging into the Chrome browser, you can't do that to Firefox. You can do it for certain things, and you can get a plugin or an add-on to do that, but natively Chrome does it, Firefox doesn't. All right, moving on to Microsoft Edge, the new version of IE. There's a neat feature in Edge that you can, if you're connected to your Wi-Fi or your Bluetooth from your laptop, you can cast or you can project that website onto those devices. It's a neat feature. Natively, it comes into Edge by default. Obviously, Chrome and the other ones can do the same thing, but you have to put a plugin. This one comes by natively. They have a really great autofill. What autofill is when you're starting to type a word up in your Google search, and it pre-fills that. Edge and IE has a really good autofill, which is probably why we have such autofill today, because they were, in my opinion, they did a they were on the forefront of it. They were one of the beginning ideas of autofill, and I think Chrome and all the rest of them just took it and ran as far as they could. In my opinion, they don't have a lot of extensions, but some of them are pretty decent. They tend to have the same mindset as the ones that are already currently out there. But in my opinion, Chrome and Firefox outdo the Edge extensions to no end. When I say extensions, I mean add-ons or plugins. And if you don't know if any of this is, and you want more detail, give me a shout, and I'll tell you through my website, was connectedgeek.net. And it's on the top right-hand side. Do schedule an appointment, and I'll give you a call, and we'll talk it over. Moving on, a reading view. So what a reading view is, a lot of websites are starting to do this more and more. Websites, not browsers, websites. They're giving you a button to just read the article or read the words that are just that, and no more like fancy ads, no fancy pop-ups or whatever, just the article per se. Their reading view in Edge pretty much does that for you, and makes it easier just to read the articles without all the videos going and all the pictures popping or whatever. It's just really nice. Now, the article I pulled this from, they said that the PDF handling is better. No, it's not. It's horrible. And when you install it on Windows 10, it takes over. Edge takes over your PDF viewing pleasure, as they would call it. You can't do fillable PDFs inside of Microsoft Edge. PDFs were built long before Adobe came along, but Adobe took it and made them fillable, made them more accessible to the average people when it came to filling out forms online, which was great. Well, Edge thought they could do better, and then they took over that when they first installed Windows 10. It's just horrible. So that's why I put a big not. It's no. There's some really good customizations in it, but it's all integrated with Windows. And if you like that integration, that tight communication, then Edge is for you. All right, so let's go to Opera. Opera it's definitely not a resource hog. It basically is one of the smallest installations browser-wise that I've ever experienced. It just basically installs just a few files and you're off on the internet and nothing flat. It has a built-in ad blocker. There's this thing called battery save mode. It detects what you're doing on your computer and says, oh, you know what, you're on battery mode, so I'm going to do a minimal amount of usage on your computer so you're not wearing down your battery. It's like Chrome and Edge and Firefox, they don't care. They're just going to use as much battery as they want until it dies. Opera is computer aware enough to see that you're using the battery, so it like dims parts of it and allows you to browse at the level that you like to browse, but it's just more aware of what the surroundings are. Now, if you don't know what a VPN is, it's a virtual private network. A virtual private network allows me sitting right here to connect to another area, another server, another workstation, another environment network-wise in a secure way. So you can securely connect to those areas natively inside of Opera, which is really kind of nice. Like I said before, you can use a lot of the Chrome extensions inside of Opera. There's this thing called Opera Turbo, and all it's doing is just doing that caching thing I mentioned to you before at a higher level. It pre-caches a lot of the main websites that it goes out to. So if it goes to Microsoft or to get news or to CNN, it already goes out to those locations and pulls a lot of that data in. So when you go to those websites, a lot of that information is already pre-downloaded into your computer, which is kind of nice, and it kind of gives it a speed turbo. Speed dial is basically what Chrome has done lately is when you do a new tab and you have those like 3 or 4 tabs that you just recently went to. Well, speed dial is built into Opera, and you can define what those blocks are natively inside of Opera. If you want that to happen in Chrome or Firefox, that has to be done via an extension. Opera does it natively. And Opera has a news digest, basically gives you a lot of news aggregation, just feeds you news if you want it to, like on the screen, like on the sidebar if you want it. And it's just a nice little news feed that it'll help you get through the day with your information. Alrighty, next. Now, as I mentioned before, it's very important to keep your browser safe. I still think Firefox is the number one when it comes to safety, then Chrome, Opera, Edge, Internet Explorer, and maybe Safari are about the same. I didn't even put it on here because nobody even uses it outside of Mac computers, and Macs don't get viruses, so why should I put it in here? Because it's mostly a Mac machine, and most people don't use it unless you're doing specifically something inside of a Mac related to a Safari. I don't think Apple has put any much effort into it recently, other than on their iPhone devices or iPads. It's a bit of a lackluster, in my opinion, a browser, and I never use it except for the default on an iPhone when I first get it. Then I instantly change it to Chrome. Vivaldi and Tor browsers are the low-end browsers. Well, not really low-end. They're new up-and-coming browsers that are going to try and show their face, hopefully, in the next year or so. But I think Firefox and Chrome and obviously Internet Explorer have kind of saturated the market of browsers on their computers, they would have to really step up their game to kind of compete with those groups. Last thing is that all browsers have a private mode, or in Chrome it's called incognito. And if you want to go to a website and you're leery of what it might give you or might happen to you, open up it in incognito mode or in Chrome, or I'm sorry, in private mode, and that'll give you the opportunity to test the website so it doesn't cache anything locally, it doesn't track anything. Let's say you're going to your bank and you don't want any of that information cached on your machine. Well, that's a good place to type in your information, and as soon as you close the browser, all of that information is not stored anywhere on your computer at all. Now, if you wanted to go surf the internet without anybody knowing what you're doing, like where you're going, what you're doing when it comes to the search keywords that you are typing in, what's happening, because I mentioned this last week, when you type in all that information, it's all stored somewhere. It's all put somewhere in the web. Somebody keeps it somewhere, and you always will have it stored and recovered no matter where you go. Remember, when you type in your search term into Google, they save that. And then they analyze it, catalog it, analytic it. And then next time somebody types in the same search term, it gets ranked up higher and higher. And then, like, who is Kim Kardashian, right? What will happen is that's probably asked about 1,000 times. Well, they see that, and then they can advertise to you their TV show or what have you. That's just an important thing to remember. The point is, this DuckDuckGo.com allows you to surf anonymously. You type in any word you want, do anything you want to get to that website. It's not stored anywhere. It just allows you to type in the word and nothing. Now, once you get to the website, they'll track you. But searching for a specific piece of information, it could be good, bad, different, whatever it is, they won't track you. They don't care. Anyway, so that has been our show tonight. It's been great to have you guys here. I see that we had 3 different people show up. EJ, Cindy, and Sean. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you coming in and spending some quality time with the browser wars and how it impacts you and the choices that you make around those browsing decisions. So I want to say thanks again for hanging out with me tonight, and come back tomorrow. We're going to kind of recap the week. We're going to talk about just any new tech ideas, suggestions, and if you have any new tech ideas or suggestions, just message me or leave a comment in the bottom. And if you need any help with any kind of IT needs when it comes to hanging a wireless access point or fixing your computer, swapping out a hard drive, your screen cracked, I can help you with that. Also, go to my website at connectedgeek.net, and if you need to talk to me about any technology or website builds or social media, schedule an appointment at connectedgeek.net. Thanks, guys, and have a great night. And be excellent to each other.